Mental health is overrated. Ooh, there's a topic for you. In this video, I'm going to explain why, if you're a young man and you want to succeed and you want to win and amass more wealth and more financial control than 99% of other people on the planet, you're going to have to think a little bit differently. And part of what is embedded into society's paradigm is this emphasis on feeling good and feeling happy and chasing meaning and chasing fulfillment and chasing happiness. And, you know, whether that's short-term happiness or long-term happiness, everyone wants to feel good. And a lot of people in life, they'll say like, oh, it doesn't matter what you're doing as long as you're happy. And I can tell you that I know a lot of successful people. I know people worth 9 figures, multi-9 figures. I know billionaires, and none of them optimize for happiness. Because if they did, they wouldn't be drowning themselves in work and suffering and pain every single day. When you start trying to become successful, you're going to be challenged. And what happens to a lot of people, a lot of young guys, especially young guys, is they've got this image and this belief system in their mind of what their life should be. And that is usually like, oh, I need to have like a really healthy body and a really healthy mind, and I need to be balanced, and I need to be happy, and I need to be this. And those are really good ideals. And you should try your best to make sure that you are healthy, make sure that you're happy, and make sure that all these things are in tow. But there are going to be times in business and in life and in your career where those things are going to have to take a back burner, and you're going to have to temporarily sacrifice parts of your mental health, your physical health, and your life to achieve success and an outcome. Hey everyone, it's Future Charlie here, and I want to take a quick second to tell you about Imperium Academy, which is a free 6-week training program that I've created over the course of a year. This shows you everything about how to start a business and achieve financial freedom and get to $10,000 a month with a new business from scratch. It walks you through everything step by step, from how to pick a niche, how to create an offer, all the way through how to deliver a service and actually start selling and booking appointments and getting clients. So it's completely free. It's the most comprehensive training on the planet that shows you how to get the first client, how to get the financial freedom, and how to start an online business. We've already got 20,000 people doing this, so click the link in the description. No credit card required. Let's carry on with the video. And here's what happens, and here's why a lot of people aren't successful. They have these ideals of what they think their life should look like and how they think they should feel. And then they start a career or they start a business, and that business then demands things from them. And, you know, one thing it might demand from you is a very high stress threshold. One thing it might demand from you is really strong emotional control. Another thing it might demand from you is for you to be very anxious for a bit. It might demand for you to be depressed for a bit. And I don't mean this in a way that a business is a malevolent, you know, narcissistic, Machiavellian being that is sentient, that's trying to make you miserable. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that if you want to get rich, sometimes you have to be those things. So for example, I can tell you my story. So I am 27 years old. I've made nearly $40 million online. I'm a multimillionaire quite a few times over, and my life is amazing. But I want to go to the next level. I want to be 9-figure level, multi-9 figure level, $1 billion level. And I could easily rest on my laurels, live off the interest that I have from the cash in my account, and live a very good, happy life with no stress, no sadness, and no anxiety, and just fade away into, you know, the info bro oblivion. This happens with a lot of people online. They'll make some money, they'll make their millions, and then you'll never hear from them again. And that's fine, because a lot of people are very content and happy just sort of fading off and riding off into the sunset with their bags of gold from selling their courses. But every now and then you get these weird lunatics like me who want to push it further and further. And that's because what I found is the more I try and optimize for like feeling good, and the more I try and optimize my actions and my life and my business for my own personal well-being, the less successful I become. And everyone's kind of got it backwards, because like when we think about traditional like self-improvement and self-help thinking and business thinking, it's always like, hey bro, get your diet clean, sleep properly, like take care of yourself, and all these things you should do. And you should always try to look after yourself and optimize for these things. You just can't get jammed onto it, and you can't have this sort of, you can't associate your identity with these things. Because, for example, I've spent the last year of my life building a brand new product suite for my company, completely overhauling the ads in my business, hiring brand new divisions in my team. And for the last year, I've been majorly stressed, like big time stressed, like stressed to the point where, you know, sometimes I have to like nap in the middle of the day, where I'm like, I can't sleep at night. And that's kind of like, it's not a nice thing to feel. It's a very unpleasant, neurotic based, emotion, and stress isn't nice to feel. But the thing is that's what the business requires of me to get to the next level. And so if I was coming at this from the perspective like, but I need to be happy, I need to feel good, then I wouldn't do those things because my identity is associated with feeling good. So the point I'm making here, and the real critical argument is, if you want to be successful and if you want to be rich, you need to make a decision between, do you want to feel good all the time or do you actually want to succeed? Because those are two very different things. So if we look at like any athlete or anyone who's done anything great ever, like an F1 driver, for example, or a basketball player, like they put themselves through the ringer all the time. And it's not fun because it's really painful and it's really stressful and you're under loads of pressure. And, you've got people saying bad stuff about you on the internet and in media. You've got, if you let your teammates down, like they're going to hate you. And you've got your coach pressuring you and you've got your parents pressuring you and you're alone and you're trying to recover. And it's not fun, but that's what's required. And so there's a big difference between feeling anxiety and having anxiety. There's a big difference between feeling depressed and having depression. And there's a very big difference between being stressed in the moment and having like a chronic stress issue, if that makes sense. Emotions are fleeting, especially negative emotions. They will come and they will go. And it's entirely normal for you to have neurotic emotional responses to things that evoke neurotic emotional responses. And so, I see this in lots of young guys, teenagers who, are wanting to build a business and become successful. And, they start working on the company. And maybe they have to do some cold calls. Or maybe they have to, work longer than they've had to work before. Maybe they have to, skip meals. Or maybe they have to, not go to parties. And the problem is they've spent the last, 18, 19 years of their life in dopamine boy brain, where everything feels good. When you're a teenager, provided you've grown up in a first world country and you've had some level of, familial security, you've probably had it pretty straightforward compared to what some people have had it in the current climate of third world countries and also through the past of history and stuff. And it's these kids, they as soon as it gets hard, they retreat. And that's kind of indicative of what's happening to a lot of people these days, is we've conditioned ourselves to feel so good all the time. And we've conditioned our lives and structured our existences to basically be like, I feel good all the time. And then as soon as you have to do something like make a cold call and get rejected, or, work until midnight on a client project, or skip a party, or say no to something you want to do, or throw away your Xbox, or clean up your diet, or go to the gym, or start sleeping on time and making sacrifices, all these things, they make you feel anxious and they make you feel stressed. But here's the thing. My opinion is that the way that you balance and manage mental health is by feeling the emotions that come as a result of doing the things and learning to deal with them and learning to cope with them. Because stress, anxiety, and depression and all these other, emotional issues that you might face, they are healthy, normal, physiological responses to stresses. And so you want to learn how to deal with them and you want to learn how to feel them, because what's really interesting is anxiety and depression, or sadness, or neurotic emotion, or anger, or feeling upset, or feeling stressed, these negative things that we don't like to feel, you have to feel them no matter what. Because let's map out the two trajectories that you can take. Right now, you can avoid the anxiety, you can avoid the depression, you can avoid the stress, you can avoid the neuroticism. And you can do that by engaging in short-term dopaminergic reward behaviors, like drinking or partying, and not doing the work and not working in your business. And you can just have your normal job and just, work 9 to 5, but you don't really want to do it, but you're kind of numb. That's kind of what people do, is they numb themselves with these behaviors. And you cannot feel that anxiety, that depression, that stress. Now, in the short term, the alternative is you can try and start the business, you can try and get into shape, you can try and do all these hard things, and you're going to feel lots of negative emotion, lots, because, when you try and make something of yourself, you're bending the universe to your will. Things aren't what you want them to be, and so you're bending the universe and literally just trying to trying to bend it to your will. And when you bend the universe, it will try and bend back. Like, it's hard to hold that thing into place and to make it solidify. It's like, imagine you've got this metal bar that's kind of like a little bit soft, and you've got to wrench it, and you're gonna feel all this pain in your forearms and in your chest, and you just got to wrench this thing, and you've got to hold it there until eventually the universe learns, oh, he's not gonna let go. So then the universe just dissipates, and now you've got this completely different reality. And that's kind of how it works. And so you've got these two trajectories. You can either have a nice, easy life now with no mental health problems and no issues to do with anxiety or depression because you're just numb. But the thing is they still exist. It's kind of like the only reason you don't feel the negative emotions is because you numb yourself and drown yourself in dopamine. But what happens to the people that do that in the short term is they get to 30 or they get to 40. And they're still working a 9-to-5 dead-end job. Maybe they've made a little bit of progress in their career, but then they get to that point where it's now too late. You've got a wife, you've got kids, you've got a mortgage, you've got bills to pay, you've got responsibilities, and now you fall into that middle-age trap of, oh, I could, the whole football thing, I could have gone pro if I didn't break my knee. It's like, I could have started a business if I didn't have these kids and this wife. And it's like, well, you could have done it when you were 20 and had all the time and security in the world, but were too lazy to. And so this is why, like, this video is so important for young guys, because it's like a call to action for now. Like, face the stress, man. Like, put yourself in the anxious situations. Put yourself in the rejective state. That thing where you make a cold call or you have to try and do something and you're not good enough, and when you're being judged by other people and people are laughing at you and people are pointing at you and people are saying that you're never going to make it. Lap it up. Like, you need to become a sponge for neuroticism. Like, you need to relish in and completely bask in negative emotional states. Now, I'm not advocating for you purposefully trying to contract a mental illness. That's not what I'm saying here. What I'm saying is, instead of taking trajectory number 1, which sends you on the path of despair, best summarized by Henry Thoreau when he said, the mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation. What's called resignation is confirmed desperation. So what happens to most guys, literally like 99% of men, is when they're 30 or 40, they look back and they think like, oh, I could have done it, but I didn't. And then they resign. They're sort of resigned their success, and now they're just like, whatever. And you get some 30-year-olds and some 40-year-olds that claw it back and pull it back, but it's very rare and it's very hard to do, because at that point you have to undo all of this psychological identity-based conditioning. Very hard time. And also you're starting at the beginning, and that's really hard, because you can be 30, but you can be against 20-year-olds who have more energy than you, more risk, like they have more risk tolerance than you, and that can be difficult. So what's the alternative to that? The alternative is obviously to become this sponge. Here's the thing. What I found to rapid growth and exponential business success in any realm, across any industry that I've studied anywhere, and all these people that I know, is the more pain you are in and the more suffering that you're experiencing as a result of your work, the more likely you are to succeed. And the bigger the growth around the corner. Now, I've had months in business before where I've become complacent and I've become comfortable. And, this happened to me when I first moved to Dubai. So the first couple of months in Dubai, I was like, oh, I've made it. I was in this massive mansion. I had the lifestyle. I had the car. You have the dinners and the parties and the clubs, and it's all amazing, and everyone loves you because you're your house, and you've got all these fancy things, and you've got all of these people around you, and you've got this social life, and you've got this fame on YouTube, and it's like suddenly you become comfortable. And what started happening is that anxiety, the stress, all those depressive thoughts, they started creeping in after like 3-4 months of me experiencing what everyone thought would be the dream life. And I became my most miserable when I stopped working. And this is hilarious, because like when I'm working really hard, like I am at the moment, and I almost always am, I struggle, and it's hard, and I'm like, it's stress and it feels bad, but it pales in comparison to being sat in a mansion and being complacent and having all these people around you that think you're great and that you don't really have anything to do. And it's like, I remember it, and it looks great from the outside in, but the second you stop working is the second you stop fulfilling your goals and you stop making progress along a trajectory towards an outcome that is meaningful. And trust me, that's not a fun place to be. So what we don't do is we don't want to take this first dopaminergic thing that then you look back at when you're 30 and think, shit, now I've got a dad bod and a mortgage and 2 kids and I'm making 50k a year and I really don't know what to do about this because I'm now miserable. Oh, whatever. It was just not my time. Maybe in another life. That's what happens to most guys. Like, and that's really scary. And that's a lot closer to you than you think. Like, a lot closer. Like that shit, that life is way closer to your trajectory than you can possibly imagine. Like, if you're watching this right now and all of your behaviors aren't changing, like, you want to be successful and you want to be rich, but you don't really want it. Because if you did really want it, you'd actually be doing something to get it. You'd be making the sacrifices. You wouldn't just be sat here watching YouTube videos, just like, you know, like self-help jerking yourself off by like watching these videos and feeling good about being successful. Like, you're mentally masturbating about being successful. It's like, oh, I'm going to do it. And you're visualizing it, but you're not doing anything. And it's like, if you don't do anything, you are way closer to that life, 35, semi-detached home, 50, 60k a year, mortgage, wife, kids, 2 holidays a year if you're lucky, a boss that you hate, and having to wear like a shirt to work every day. Don't get me wrong. There is nothing wrong with that, by the way. I'm not judging anyone who does that. I'm not judging anyone who wants that. I think it's very noble and it's a completely reasonable life to want to live. To be a family man, to take care of a family, to build a family and, you know, pay your bills and work and be part of a system. Hats off. There's nothing wrong with it. But the issue comes when, if that's not what you want, and that's the antonym, that's the opposite, the complete polar transparency of what you desire, if you get that, then you're going to feel miserable and your mental health is going to be awful. And so this is the paradox. Either you suffer now a lot or you suffer later a lot. But the difference is that if you suffer now, then you're going to be infinitely happier in the future. And it's flipped. And this is the thing. You can basically, the future's coming. It's coming way sooner than you think. I swear to God, I'm 27. I can blink and I was like 17 like 10 years ago. But it doesn't feel like 10 years. Even though I've done a lot and I've lived in lots of different countries, traveled a lot, met loads of people, built loads of businesses, had loads of fun, like that's a decade and it's gone by like this. Like, I still remember like getting my first car. Like, I had a Corsa, Vauxhall Corsa. And I remember like sitting in that thing and wanting to be successful. And like I do cold calls in my car, but that feels like only like a year or two ago. It doesn't feel like this distant memory of like this kid when I was like 17. And so the problem as well is that short-term pleasure compresses the perception of time. And so when you feel good and when you feel happy and content and comfortable and easy, time goes really fast. Because pain extends the perception of time. And if you don't believe me, just do a plank or go and sit in a sauna. When you're in pain, you want it to be over, and you're so much more cognizant of time when you're in pain. And so this is why like I like working really hard, because it almost feels like I'm extending my lifespan. Obviously, I'm not biologically, but it makes the experience of life so much more enjoyable and so much more meaningful, because the times where I've just like, think about how quick a holiday goes. Like, you can be on holiday for a week, and then bang, you're out of holiday and you're like, where the hell did that time go? But think about how quick a week of cold calling would go. You know, you'd be like, this thing just seems to be taking forever. And so like, if you're doing a plank, a 2-minute plank, like a 2-minute Instagram scroll, like if you're going on Instagram Reels and you're scrolling through that for 2 minutes, that goes by in like a heartbeat. That you're not even cognizant of that. But if you do a plank and you're in pain, that 2 minutes feels like forever. And so if you want to get more out of life as well, doing painful things can extend your perception of time. And what that does is it helps you build wisdom. It makes you think more. It makes you reflect more. It makes your life more meaningful. It makes you make better decisions. It slows you down. It makes you build patience. It helps you build stress tolerance. And so what you want to learn to do is forego the instantaneous pleasure. And whilst you're young, and whilst you've got the emotional capacity with zero commitments and physical and mental, so let's say that you live with your parents, right? You've got financial safety. And even if you don't live with your parents, let's say that you're paying like $400 a month in rent and you're living with a couple of mates from university. You are safe. You're not going to die if you fail. This is the only time you have where you can try, and if you fail, nothing bad's really going to happen. You might end up 10 grand in debt. So what? Like, you can't do this again. And you have to be willing, the message here is to forgo the mental health. And people misunderstand when I say that. I'm not telling you that I want you to be depressed and anxious. And I'm not saying that mental health isn't important. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying that you have to be willing to deprioritize emotional happiness for long-term success and long-term meaning and fulfillment. And so right now, the paradox is this. I am at my peak stress. I am at my peak anxiety because I'm like working incredibly hard. I'm putting in 12 to 14 hour days, 6 days a week. You get to this point where you don't sleep properly, you get burnout, you get these weird physical symptoms from stress, you can't really exercise properly, you go insular, you don't talk to people. And that sounds like it sucks and it sounds like it's awful. But the crack is that I'm the happiest I ever am when I'm in this state because I know I can track my progress towards a goal. And as men, the thing that we derive meaning from and the thing that we derive a sense of fulfillment from, which is ultimately happiness in a way less expedient form, is progress. But it's progress towards responsibility. And this is where things get really interesting here, because the easiest way for you to offset neuroticism, anxiety, depression, stress, when you're feeling bad things, is knowing that by feeling those things, you're taking responsibility for an instance of your life. Say, for example, you have a child. And let's say that child is has some special needs and needs medical support. And let's say that you have to pay for that medical support. And let's say in order to pay for that medical support, you have to work overtime. Now, working that overtime suddenly sucks way less because you're doing it for a very, very meaningful reason. You're taking responsibility for your child's health. And in the process, you might feel stressed, you might feel anxious, you might feel depressed through these work things, but you're going to feel so much less because you know you're doing it for a good reason. And this is why chasing money and financial gain and material gain works up until you get it. This happened to me. Basically, I became successful, I became a millionaire, I had the house, I had the car, I had the watch, I had the girls, blah, 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 whatever stuff. And it didn't mean anything. And suddenly, once I'd achieved the status that I wanted to achieve because of my deep insecurities from when I was a child or when I was a teenager or whatever, I was no longer chasing anything meaningful. And what that meant is I was only working for more of what I already had. And so this is why entrepreneurs plateau, and it's why complacency kicks in. Is once you have the money and you use that money to buy the shiny objects to show everybody what you've got, working is no longer necessary because you've fulfilled the whole reason for doing it. And what you'll do is you'll sustain because you don't want to lose these things because loss aversion is incredibly strong, but you won't grow. And so that's a massive trap that so many entrepreneurs and business people fall into is work, make some money, buy material objects. And now work is no longer about building or growing. It's about sustaining and maintaining so you can keep this lifestyle that you've created. And a lot of people are happy with that. But a lot of people, probably you because you've made it this far into a weird abstract video on how to think about money and success, probably wouldn't be particularly content. So you have to get it out of your system. You have to do that whole flashy thing. But just don't be surprised if when you get it, it'll feel great for a month or two. And then you'll realize that even at a level of the height of success where you can afford mansions and supercars, don't be surprised if the same rule that I've just explained applies, where now you have to forego those short-term pleasures in order for longer-term happiness again. And so the universe is kind of rigged against us, against blokes, against men. It's constant. The only way to really be happy is to be unhappy. And the only way to feel calm is to feel stressed. Because I feel my most calm when I'm my most stressed. And it's paradoxical, and that doesn't make any sense, does it? So let me explain. I feel at my most calm in my business and in my success and in my work and in my trajectories when I have the most control, okay, in my company. When I know what's going on, when I can see the clear goals and I can see what everybody's doing and I can see exactly what I've got to work on and the quality of work that has to be done, and that's control. And to hold that control, it's like you're holding this business in your hand, and you've got to grip on really tight. It's exhausting and it's stressful, but it makes you feel calm knowing full well what's happening and what's going on. And the same thing is true when I'm at my most unhappy is when I am happy. And so think about this. Let's say that you do a workout, and there's a bit of latency here, by the way. So let's say that you do a workout, and let's say that you're doing you're just running for an hour. And obviously with running for an hour, that's pretty fun. You're not going to be very happy about it. That can suck. It can feel really painful. Your legs are going to burn. Your lungs are going to burn. Your brain's going to be screaming at you to stop. You're going to be facing that pain. You're not happy when you're running, right? But you get off that treadmill and now you feel good about yourself. You've got endorphins coming out of your ears. You've achieved something. You've moved towards a goal of being healthy. You've taken responsibility for your own miserable existence and you feel good. And so unhappiness creates happiness. Pain creates pleasure. Stress creates calm. Anxiety creates calm, and depression creates happiness. I don't mean that in a strict term, because depression can be super serious for some people, whether you believe in it or not. There's a whole debate. We can talk about that for a quick second. My opinion of anxiety and depression is they are symptoms, not diseases. And a lot of you are going to disagree with this, and that's fine, but this is my way of coping with those things. And, whether it's psychologically accurate or significant or empirical or not is entirely up for you to decide. But anytime that I feel some sort of negative emotion, I see it as feedback. Because what anxiety and depression basically it's your brain telling you, hey, something's not right. Because it's not normal and it's not healthy to feel those negative emotions all the time. And so if you feel them, it's indicative that what your life isn't quite aligned with what your life should be. And so in Stoicism, they talk a lot about, one of the key points of Stoicism is they talk a lot about acting in alignment with nature and, behaving and orienting your existence in conjunction with what nature intended. And what the Stoics thought is that anytime you behave out of alignment with nature and what nature intended, you kind of feel these weird symptoms. And so, what nature intended for us was specifically with, I'm going to give you a couple of examples here. What nature intended for us was prolonged focus on one thing, because that's hunting. And we are designed to hunt, especially as men. I went clay pigeon shooting for the first time the other day, and I thought I was going to suck, but I was really good. I could just aim intuitively, take the shot, bang. We are built to hunt. And I went with a bunch of other guys, and they'd never done it before, and they were all good as well. And I'm not saying that all men are good at shooting, but the point is that look at what we do. We play video games. Look at Call of Duty, one of the most successful video game franchises. What are you doing? You're running around and taking aim. Look at sports. What are we doing when we watch a sport like basketball or golf? We're watching other men take aim. All we care about as men is aiming and shooting and hitting a target. And that's because we are engineered biologically, metaphysically, spiritually, physically, in every way possible to hunt. And so that is what nature intended for us. And I'm not saying you have to go out with a bow and arrow and shoot a squirrel out of a tree. This is why we build businesses. This is why we create careers. This is why we want to get rich. It's a target. We're aiming for something. Yes, it's an abstraction, and we're not on the African plains anymore, crawling around, shouting, weird chants at each other as we boil pigs. I don't know what the hell people used to do, right? There's an image for you. But we're taking aim. And when we take aim and we hunt, there's no time to feel anxious and there's no time to feel depressed. And so the hunt, the aim, the target, and the hitting that target, we don't think about it. Any time that you have watched sport, or you've watched someone take aim, or you've done it yourself, or you've hunted in some sort of abstract way related to the origination of hunting, you don't feel anything. You're locked in. You're diabolically focused on one thing. And when you're focused on that one thing, you don't feel anything. It's just you and the target. So this is what nature intended. And so what a lot of men do in their lives is they have no goal. They have nothing to aim for. And when you have nothing to aim for, that is when anxiety and depression creeps in. Because anxiety and depression to me are symptoms of me behaving out of alignment with what nature intended. And so nature intended for me to aim at something and hit it, and hit that target. And this is why we deify athletes. It's why athletes get paid hundreds of millions of dollars, sometimes even billions of dollars, the best ones, because the best athletes in the world, like the best golfers, the best basketballers, the best NFL players, the best footballers, what are they? They're hunters. They're taking something and shooting it at something. And the better they are at that, the more elevated they become in the athletic hierarchy and the more they get paid. And so it shouldn't come as a surprise to you that this is how we've structured our society to a degree. Now, there's other sports like boxing and other things, but when you really bring down the first principle of almost every sport or video game, what is it? It's aiming. And the winner is the person who aims the best. Even like click-to-point games like League of Legends, what are you doing? You're just clicking around and aiming all the time. So my point is this. The Stoics said that one of the best ways to practice your life is to live in alignment with what nature intended. And nature intended for us to aim. And so if you haven't got a goal, then of course you're anxious. If you haven't got something to hit and a target, then of course you feel depressed. And the anxiety and depression, they're not necessarily real. And I'm not denying them of you. I'm not saying that, I'm not trying to gaslight you into thinking that it's not existing. But all they are is just symptoms that your brain's telling you like, hey man, can we have something to aim at here? Because let me ask you this, like, let's say right now that you're anxious and depressed and you've got poor mental health. Let me ask you this. If you had something meaningful to aim towards, like building a business and getting rich, and you were taking care of your health and you were sleeping properly and eating properly, and you had a decent social life with other people trying to do the same thing as you, and you were working on yourself and you were developing yourself and you were really trying to just hit this target, what do you think would happen to the depression and anxiety? It would dissipate. It would go away. This whole notion that these illnesses are chemical imbalances is wild to me. Now, I'm not denying that they might exist for a few people because the brain can do all sorts of weird things and genetics can do all sorts of weird things as well. It's entirely possible that some people are born with chemical imbalances or proclivities to neuroticism. Like, for example, one of the traits in the study of personality is literally neuroticism, which is your proclivity towards experiencing negative emotion and feeling bad, right? And you can tell if someone's really neurotic because they're always really down or they feel very anxious all the time. And so it's I'm not saying that depression and anxiety aren't real. I'm just saying that for a lot of young guys, this whole mental health game is a bit of a crutch. Like, oh, I can't be successful because I feel anxious or because I'm depressed. It's like, no. The reason you feel those things is because you're not trying. And so, it's a bit of a controversial message to deliver, but let's go back to this aiming thing. You're going to feel bad if you don't do things that are in line with nature. So one thing that nature aligns us to is hunting, i.e. taking aim at a target, which is having a goal and trying to achieve that goal, which is why we derive so much fulfillment from a trajectory. A trajectory is when you've got where you are now and where you want to be. So broke, rich. No family, family. No wife, wife. And there's a gap between these two things. And when we inch closer every day towards this thing and eventually hit this target, what happens? We bring that target back to baseline and we set another target. And so, like, if you don't believe me, just look at anyone making money. Like, my first goal, hilariously, was to get to $1,000 a month. So $0 a month, $1,000 a month, right? I got to $1,000 a month, and then $1,000 a month became my new baseline. And then it was $10,000 a month. I achieved $10,000 a month. $10,000 a month is my new baseline. $100,000 a month, achieved. $1 million a month, achieved. $2 million a month, I'm on the way. And now I want to get to like $1 billion. And so I feel the same level of emotional pain being stuck, and this is not a joke. I feel the same amount of emotional pain being stuck at $800,000 a month than I did at $1,000 a month or $10,000 a month. The numbers don't fucking matter. The numbers don't mean anything. How far along you are along some sort of financial trajectory has no significance whatsoever on how you feel. I was just as happy making 10K a month than I was making 800K a month. Just as happy. Sure, I might feel a bit safer, a bit more secure, a bit more confident, but there was very marginal difference between these things. And all money is a benchmark of success, and it's just something to aim for. At the end of the day, that's all we're doing through life. Like, we don't need to hunt anymore because we can go to supermarkets or grocery stores and just, satiate our biological hunger-based cravings by just literally just buying food and cooking it and eating it. So we don't have a reason to hunt anymore. And so what we do as men is we invent new mechanisms to fulfill that basic, drive, that real evolutionary drive that we've got. So what most guys do is they spend their day scrolling Instagram reels, eating junk food with no goals and no ambitions. And they basically numb themselves and sedate themselves into a state of uselessness, right? And this is called like having no utility. If you have no utility to society and your position in the social hierarchy is really low and you look like shit and you feel like shit, then what the hell do you think is going to happen? You're going to have poor mental health. And the only way to pull yourself out of that situation is to put yourself in pain that is productive. You can feel pain because you have a shit life, or you can feel pain because you have a shit life and you're trying to get out of it. You're still going to feel pain. The pain never goes away, by the way. It doesn't matter how successful you are or how much money you have, you're always going to feel some sort of suffering. And it might ease a little bit and it might be a little bit different and you might learn better ways to deal with it and stuff like that. But my God, does it never go away. Like, I can attest this. And I love it now. The funny thing, and I can tell you this, because this is what happened to me, is after like 7 years of being with pain every day. Like, imagine pain's kind of like your partner. It's like you're with it every day. You become so familiar with it and you learn all of its little intricacies and you learn all of the things that trigger it. And you learn all of the things that like make it go away and make it come back. And you learn all these things about pain. And you really learn the true nature of what it means to actually suffer voluntarily. And that's the key, is when you're building a business. Like for me, my suffering, my pain in terms of my work and my progress is voluntary. I can stop it at any time. And that's really why like my life is so awesome, because I'm in pain, because I'm working, because I want to be in pain. When pain is voluntary, it ain't so bad. If you're being tortured and waterboarded or forced to swim across the Atlantic Ocean by someone at gunpoint, that pain ain't going to feel very good. But when the pain is voluntary, i.e., I should really go for a run, shouldn't I? I don't want to, it's going to be painful. Okay, I'm going to do it anyway. Knowing you can press that stop button at any time makes it all okay. It makes it bearable. And so, the pain doesn't go away. You just learn to deal with it better. And you learn to understand that it's like this little friend. And I know that sounds like weird and it makes me sound like some masochistic freak. And I don't mean it in a sexual manner whatsoever. I'm just saying that like, it becomes this thing that you can just rely on. It's always there for you. And what I like to do is, if I've ever got shit going on in my life, in my personal life, like if there's hard times with friends or family or like health or whatever, which to be fair, I'm quite lucky with, never really happens. I've always got pain. And I know that sounds so weird, but what you can learn to do is, at the beginning, you will numb yourself with dopamine, and you will numb yourself with short-term gratification, and you will numb yourself with all of these behaviors that make you feel nice and warm and fuzzy, like gaming, like drinking, like partying, or wanking off into some horrible video or something. Like you make yourself feel better in the short term. And they numb you, and you kind of sedate yourself away from feeling any existential dread about your miserable existence, because you have no use to anyone, you have no trajectory, you're not aiming at anything. But what you can eventually learn to do is take this pain thing and use that instead to numb yourself. And you can use this sort of healthy, voluntary, productive, meaningful suffering, this pain that you can draw from a trajectory. Like, here's where you are, here's where you want to be, you're trying to get there, and every step of the way is littered with just pain, and you can extract that pain and sort of hold on to it, and it doesn't feel good, but it doesn't feel bad. It's just there, and you just experience it. It's just all part of the fun. And when you feel that, there's no room to feel the other pain. Like, I right now am so busy with work and so like ridiculously overloaded with tasks, and I'm so like locked into my work that I have no time to feel anxious or depressed. In fact, if I get like a negative thought pop into my head, I had this the other day, without getting too personal, I had this thought the other day about like something to do with like a relationship, and like a really negative thought, and I started to sort of spiral, and I caught it, and I was like, I am too busy to feel that right now. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't push your problems under the rug, because the last thing you want to do is repress trauma and these things. But a lot of these things that make you feel anxious, depressed, are just these random thoughts that you just let run loose. And so when you're that busy chasing goals and taking aim, you haven't got any time to feel bad. it's not pleasant. Like, you're still going to feel this stress, and you're still going to feel on edge, and you're still going to feel pain. You're still going to feel suffering, because that's just the nature of doing anything that makes you successful or separates you from the crowd, like doing bodybuilding or athletic work or boxing or building a company. It sucks, and it still hurts. But there's no real time to feel existential suffering. And I'm someone who doesn't feel much neuroticism. I'm very, very, very low in trait neuroticism, which means that if I'm ever in a negative state of mind, it doesn't last for long. I'm able to emotionally stabilize myself very quickly. And that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs who are really successful are very good at doing, is being able to stabilize negative emotions very quickly. So the second you feel them, you can rationalize them, comprehend them, deal with them, process them, talk about them, get them out, because what you don't want is for anxiety or depression to grow. It is kind of like a weed in your mind. Like, as soon as you start feeling like some negative mental health stuff, like, deal with it immediately. Like, it's a symptom, it's a sign that something in your life isn't as it should be. Find the root of it, talk about it to people, get a hug from someone, cry about it if you need to, talk to your partner, talk to your friends, get it out. Whether you've got to do the therapy thing, like, there's no shame in feeling it, but there's every shame in holding on to it and letting it just rule your life. Because that's what most people do, is they don't get ahead of it. You've got to treat your mental space. Like, imagine in your brain, you have like what we would call mental real estate, right? And you only have so much mental real estate, and it's very, very valuable if you're successful or trying to become successful, because everything that happens in your life first happens in your brain. All the thoughts you have, all the emotions you have, all the triggers you have, all the conditioning you have, like, you build a business in your brain before you build it in person, in life. All the hires you make, all the decisions you make, all the products you make, all the videos you make, all the content, all the brand, like, it happens up here first. It has to happen here. And so the last thing you want is for your mental real estate to be taken up by all these emotions. And like anxiety, for example, let's say that your mind is a garden, right? And I don't want to get too philosophical. Let's say your mind is a garden and you've got 100 square meters in this garden. And let's say that a little weed grows in the corner of the garden, and that weed only takes up 1 square meter. It only takes up 1 square meter, right? So it's not much. And what happens is that weed grows. But the problem is it grows exponentially. So the first growth period, it only takes up 3 squares because it had surface area to bolt onto 2 more. But now the second growth period, suddenly it takes up like 9 squares or something, or like 6 squares, whatever the hell that would be. And so you need to catch these little mental health problems at the beginning. Like, you've probably got some issues now. The way you're going to probably fix those things is by cleaning your life up, eating properly, exercising, sleeping properly, having a healthy social life, and setting a goal and giving yourself permission to actually try to achieve something with your existence. If you do those things, you might not completely get rid of the neurotic emotions, and you might not completely fix your mental health, but it's probably going to be a lot better than just talking about it every single day to a therapist or taking some pills that just make every other emotion completely obsolete. Because that's what happens, by the way, with antidepressants. What antidepressants do is they basically make you apathetic. So it's not, they don't just strip you of sadness, they strip you of everything. And you don't feel anything, and that's awful. And so your mental real estate is so important, and it's so crucial that you keep this thing clean. So anytime I feel any sort of negative emotion crop up, I'm in there with the trowel and I'm digging it out. I'm finding out, why did that happen? What caused that emotion? Was it this person I let into my life? Was it this thing that I started eating? And trust me, you might not believe this, but what you eat can influence your emotional state more than you can possibly imagine. If you don't believe me, just look into the vagus nerve and brain fog and inflammation, how it relates to what you eat, and also your dietary, like, what do you call them? Like, inflammation causes allergies, intolerances, etc. Like, what you eat can happen a lot. And like, look at it, dig it up, find a therapist if you need to, talk to your mum, talk to your dad, talk to your friends, cry it out, get a hug. You got to become quick. It just, as soon as it comes in, dig it out, bang, out. Another one. And they're going to keep coming up all the time. But the cool thing is, if you're working really hard, and like, if your mental garden, or let's use a better term, if your mental real estate is already is completely developed, like, if you're using every square inch of that thing on your business and on your goals, then there's no room for these things to come in. Because like, if a toxic person tries to come into your life, don't want anything to do with it. Or if someone invites you to something stupid, like a party, don't want anything to do with it. And so by being like, having your blinders on, and by basically having all your mental real estate just completely taken up by a goal, like, you're not going to feel any mental health problems. You just won't. Like, I know so many entrepreneurs, and we are like the happiest people on the planet. We're the most stressed and the most sort of chaotic and, sometimes like stressed and frantic people on the planet. But it's very, very rare that I meet an entrepreneur that is very busy, working very hard, and, trying their best. It's very rare that I meet someone like that who is actually in a really, really bad place, unless something awful has happened. So this is the thing. If someone in your life dies, or if you get, I don't know, abused, or like, let's say that like you go to a foreign country and you get kidnapped, like, or, let's say that you go into a car crash and you accidentally kill a child, or well, that's a bit of a heavy one, isn't it? Or let's say that your son gets conscripted to go and fight in a war. Those things, you should feel a bit of negative emotion, probably quite a lot. But the things that people feel negative emotion about these days is insane. Like, people are like if someone's Wi-Fi, like, look what happens to a young man these days, like some teenage kid or some 20-year-old kid if their Wi-Fi goes down for a day. Look at how they react. Like, look at how some people react these days to like what happens if like a rapper dies. Like, you don't even know the person. Like, I guess that can be quite upsetting. But the point I'm making is save your stress, save your anxiety, and save your depression. These little things that you can feel, save them for things that actually warrant those emotions. Aristotle said this. He said, it's easy to be angry, but it's hard to be angry at the right person, for the right thing, for the right level of intensity, for the right amount of time. And the same thing is true for depression, stress, and anxiety. So when you take your stresses, like, if someone look at what happens to people these days. Like, if someone, like, the other day, I cut someone off in traffic. Now, admittedly, I didn't actually cut them off because it was standstill traffic. And so in London here, if I'm driving in London, it's every man for himself. So I pulled out into static traffic and kind of made my position very clear, like, hey, I'm just going to get through this keep clear bit so I can just pull around. And there was a guy in a van. And I could hear this guy, I had my windows down, this guy was shouting at me, you fucking dickhead, how dare you cut me off? And he was really not having a good time, screaming. And I kind of put my hand up. I didn't acknowledge him because I was like, there's just no point. I'm just like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. I drove around and he threw a bottle at my car. Like, I hear this cling off my wing mirror, and he's thrown this glass bottle at my car. And I thought, oh my God, like save your stress, man. Like, save all these negative emotions, save this capacity for neuroticism for something that actually matters. Because the people like that, and I'm not judging the guy, like maybe he's having a bad day, maybe something just really bad did just happen, right? I don't care. It's just, he broke my wing mirror, got it fixed, cost me 70 quid. It has no significance. But this is the difference. So when I was in my car, when that guy was shouting at me, I was completely unfazed. I didn't care. And when that bottle hit my car, I saw it hit my wing mirror. I was like, whatever, I don't care. I've got bigger things to worry about than spending £100 to get my wing mirror fixed. And I came back and my friends were like, I said to this guy, he was like, you should sue him, you should get his number plate. I was like, man, like, I haven't got the time. Like, what am I going to do? Sue him for like $1,000? It's going to cost me like 2 months of my life. He's like, yeah, but it's the principle. I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like, you've got to learn to save your negative emotion for things that actually matter. So I will only get upset or angry or stressed or anxious or depressed about things that are important. If it threatens me or someone that I love in a serious way, then I will begin to feel emotion and register that as a true threat. If someone tried to mug me at knife point, I better get my stress up. I better get my anxiety up. And if they successfully do it and walk off with my wallet, I better get my depression up, because these things are like, that's when you're supposed to feel those things, not when your Wi-Fi dies or your flight's delayed, or like I was on a flight the other day. Every time I fly, I want to buy a private jet more and more. It's a little bit of motivation for me. And there was this kid that was screaming the whole way. No, it's a bit unpleasant. There's a little baby, like just screaming, like 2 years old, screaming, and everyone else was just like, whatever, scream baby. And there was this one woman that would not leave it. Like, she would not shut about it. She was at the front of the plane. She was like screaming at the flight attendant, like, you got to shut this baby up. Like, I've taken my kids on long haul flights to Sri Lanka and they weren't like this and I'm going insane. And I was like, woman, like, what the hell? Like, it's just a baby. It was a 3-hour flight. Like, like put headphones in, or just ignore it. It's like, the things that people get worked up about and the things that trigger people to have mental health relapses and issues these days are insane. And I'm convinced that it's no different to just decide. And the thing is, what will happen is when you have a big enough goal and you make yourself very, very busy in pursuit of that goal, you just don't care about anything. Like, people can insult you, people can, like, you know, throw bottles at your cars, people can, like, try and piss you off, cut you off in traffic. You're gonna, like, drop a plate and, like, you're gonna spill milk, or I'm just trying to give random examples that people get triggered out these days. Like, save your anger, save your anxiety, save your depression. The secret to good mental health is being so busy in your pursuit of an objective that you simply don't have time to feel it. Goodbye.